The state, nation, and world learn more about this new virus every single day. And public health officials and governments across the country are working to put what we learn into action. While most, more than 80%, who get this virus experience mild to moderate symptoms, we know some people are at higher risk of becoming very sick. We all have to do our part to slow it down to protect the ill and older Vermonters who are at risk. So today, we're going to enact mitigation measures that will help slow the spread. Every single one of us has an incredibly important role to play in this. We're all in this together. That's why today I declared a state of emergency, which will be in effect until April 15th.
Well, we knew right away what the governor said on that Friday. He sent us all home on Friday saying we're not shutting down the schools. It would be the worst thing we could do. When they locked down the schools and sent all my kids home, I knew something was wrong. Mentally, physically, it's a warm place for them. It's still cold in March. My kids went home to cold, smoky houses. A lot of times they had to babysit other kids because their parents or their aunt still had to work and there was no childcare. So I had like 6th grade girls who were stuck babysitting out of control kids for months at a time with no end in sight. Just the hopelessness. The kids were forgotten. That was the worst part.
When we stop and think about what they are trying to do, when we stop and think about what they're trying to do, there's no legislative due process happening. There's no public testimony allowed. They cannot make decisions for us. Mandates, period, are not okay. Mandates on masks are not okay. We do not need anyone making health choices for us. We need public testimony. We need due process. We need these things to happen.
I want them there with you. And I want them to have the chance to develop and be around their friends and everything. But I don't want them there choking on their mask all day. Our children complain about this. I'm sure you guys see it in the classroom. Those of you who deal with it, I'm sure it's very stressful on your end. We also hear about it every single day. How they hate wearing the mask. How they get headaches, and it's not good for them. And it is giving them social issues as well. My youngest son prefers to put a mask, or did until this past summer, preferred to put a mask on when he met new people. Because it made him, he could cover his face up. That's not okay with me. That's not normal. It's just another thing to consider. I just want you to all consider every aspect of
it. Mask makes me feel bad.
When I was asked to step up and be a coach during COVID, I said, no, I will not mask students. I will not mask athletes. We don't mask athletes. We don't ask people to run while we inhibit their oxygen.
Myself and my employees were put on the spot every single day. That wasn't fair to us. We had to call the cops several times because people were fighting in the yard. People were damaging other people's vehicles over this.
I could pour through the many harms of masking, which have been duly recorded from friable particulate inhalation and chronic inhalation of extremely carcinogenic chemicals used on masks like ethylene oxide and synthetic fluoride, things you really ought not to be breathing in at all, to fungal and bacterial colonization, to psychological harms, which are many, to sociological harms, which we are living in part right now here at this meeting. Or the immediate harm of having to work harder to obtain oxygen, as the oxygen levels inside a mask drop below OSHA's safe levels within seconds. That's 17.4%, by the way. Or their incredible inefficacy, as they simply create jets of air pushing out the sides and top, as anyone with common sense can tell you. But my main message tonight is a human one. It is simply wrong to force, coerce, fine, impoverish, stress, and divide people. A person must have autonomy over their own body. This is fundamental. As a woman, this is a recurring theme in my life, bodily autonomy. A subject I've always had at the forefront of my mind because politicians involve themselves where they should not. And now it has come to discussing criminalizing your neighbors and the local economy and making life ever more contentious, divided, and destructive. People must be able, at an individual level, to decide how they can breathe. which I can't believe I have to say. I, for one, have a hypoxic condition in my tissues. It's a strange inflammatory disease that I am not happy divulging to the public, but I am doing that to defend myself and others. I am always in some level of discomfort, ranging from a 4 to 10 on a pain scale. I'm like a barometer for how much oxygen and acid is in my tissues because it hurts and burns and causes scar tissue as areas struggle, and I can tell you masking does me harm.
I just want to say a little bit about what happened to me. By the way, I didn't resign. I was fired. I was discharged from my job. I was told that I had to attest that I had received the COVID shot or submit to periodic testing and don a mask at the workplace like a proverbial leper. I would be the only one with the mask on. At the time, we were into the COVID era 19 months. So that was March of 2020 to October of 2021, which is a period of 19 months. And as I wrote to my boss, at that moment we had 335 deaths in Vermont at the time that were, quote, COVID as a cause or contributing condition on the death certificate. That was the statistic at that moment of 335. So we turned the state upside down, impacted good people like the Desitels. But the state didn't focus on the deaths so much. They talked about increasing cases. The cases are going up. Well, I said, and still say, I thought that would be good news, cases plus recovery, because there's something called immunity, right? I mean, it still is. Isn't that what a vaccine's supposed to do? Generate immunity? Isn't it better to get immunity naturally from the virus?
Have you ever before seen people go get tested for something when they don't have any symptoms? Why? Why?
I just wish my kids could go to school without complaining, without being muzzled, be able to breathe freely and see their friends' expressions. It is just a major concern of mine going forward with how these kids are going to develop. And the other thing that bothers me is that the goalpost keeps moving and moving. You know, first it's 15 days to curve the spread, and now we're 18 months into it, and there's just no end in sight. Honestly, there's really dark days where, what's the point of going on? Because this is just getting so darn hard on all of us.
I don't hear very well. I have a high frequency hearing loss, so I can't distinguish consonants very well. And when people are wearing masks, I have no idea what they're saying.
Yeah.
So I feel really lost because I realize now even more that I read lips. And people's facial expressions have a lot to do with what they're saying. So.
There's no rhyme or reason for any of it. Like, nobody will listen to anything. We went to the school boards. We've gone to different meetings. Nobody, it's the same thing. It's just like knocking on the door and nobody will listen. I don't know how do you change the process. Again, we ended up giving the state plenty of information, and that's where I feel now like our system is corrupt. The judge did not go with any of the information that we had. It was all what the state had, and the state didn't have any proof of anything, but she just went along with what they wanted to do, and I guess it was to make an example out of us. So I had a business that I had $300,000 invested into that was gone in a flick of a switch. They shut my system right down, and that was the end.
When I first went to school, I was in school, but when I came home and I wasn't feeling good. My stomach was hurting, my head was hurting, but I was feeling better after I came home. A few minutes after I had the mask off, then I was running around with my dogs and playing, but then we got a doctor's note, but they just didn't do anything, but the only thing they did was put me in a different room without all my friends, and then eventually they just had me not even coming to school. They gave me a computer and had me do all my online classes from home. And then my mom said I was gonna get brought to school. And then that night I was so happy because then I could see all my friends again. And then I was in my room, sleeping, and then when I woke up I was so happy because then I'd go get to see all my friends again. But once we got to the school, I went in my classroom and my teacher didn't know what was happening because I was there, so I put my backpack up. We got partnered up, and then I didn't know what was happening because then I knew my parents were talking to my principal. But then Miss G, my principal, came and took me out of the class and had me go home. And then I was sad because I couldn't see my friends again. And I was asking my parents what happened, and they told me that, and I was sad because I couldn't see my friends, and I had to do all my classes from home, and I had to do it without seeing my friends.
There's protocol. At hospitals, we don't wear masks all day long. You have little kids wearing these cloth masks. It's ridiculous. It's a virtue signaling thing. If you really wanted to follow science, there's correct procedure. And again, it's getting more division.
Sit with a bunch of people. You can go into a bar, sit with a bunch of people, but you can't walk past somebody in a store without wearing a mask. That makes absolutely no sense to me. None.
Try on. One of my boys complains about headaches. Another one gets eczema all around his mouth, despite washing it twice a day at least. And then I have a little 3-year-old that's in preschool this year, and this is her first time going to school, and just seeing her muzzled with that thing when she gets on the bus and having a hard time keeping it on her face. Her teacher actually reached out to me and asked if I was concerned about his speech. And I said, no, actually, she's the most eloquent. She has a wonderful vocabulary. I can understand her 99.9% of the time. Why? She said, I just have a really hard time understanding her. There was, a couple times in the morning, waiting for the bus while she has her mask on, and yeah, you can't understand her. So I'm concerned that she's going to be suffering being masked at school. Her teacher's having a hard time understanding her. The kids communicating with each other. So that's a concern.
Since COVID, having masks, right? And having kiddos go back to school with masks on, especially kiddos with articulation and speech differences or disorders, they're not getting those visual cues. They're not getting the feedback. It affects kiddos with hearing differences as well. So you're not getting those visual cues.
Personally, I'm tired of hearing it's just a mask. It's the least you can do to care about the community. It's not just a mask for me. When I'm forced to wear a mask, I hyperventilate, I get sweaty, I get confused. My body reacts and my blood pressure increases. I've been unable to donate blood the last 2 times because my pressure readings are so high while wearing a mask. I had to remove my mask at the doctor's office so my blood pressure would go down so they'd let me leave. It's not ever just a mask for me.
Everyone needs to make an educated choice. It is your decision whether or not you want to wear a mask. If a business owner wants to require it, if a property owner wants to require it, that is their right. It is not the place of any governing body to force something that in theory, and actually there's a good argument that does more harm than good, to be pushed on the people of its towns, counties, or state.
Every action that we take in the name of fighting COVID-19 sets precedent and pushes us farther down a slippery slope. Here, we are not yet confining people against their will to quarantine camps as they are in Howard Springs, Australia. But this is no longer as dismissible an idea as it once was. The same can be said of vaccine passports. I urge you to ask of yourselves what precedents we are setting with this mask policy. Consider that we have been urged to act as if we were all sick until proven healthy. We have been urged to act as if hypothetical harm of questionable and unmeasurable likelihood is actual harm. Consider that while we don't all subscribe to the same meta-narrative that informs our understanding of the world, we all love our friends and family and generally don't wish to harm others. And yet this policy would use the state's monopoly of power or force against those who disagree with it and would pose actual measurable harm to them in the loss of their bodily autonomy, as well as their liberty and finances, depending on enforcement and penalties. We've come a long way from 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and the goalposts seem to continually shift.
Our health department does not appear to be interested in the equation. It's time Vermonters ask, are these measures working to prevent COVID-19 and at what cost? I have 2 urgent questions that I have put into an open letter to the Vermont Department of Health. Number 1, what is the department's process for weighing the evidence and conducting an ongoing cost-benefit analysis of their health policies related to COVID-19? And number 2, how can the public participate in that process? Since these mandates are impeding our state's democratic processes in so many ways, shouldn't the decisions themselves be made as democratically as possible? How does the Vermont Department of Health make these decisions? How are they revised? How is the evidence weighed? Who sits at the table and who participates in these discussions? I don't think Vermonters know the answers to those questions. And number 2, in order to assess how these health policies are affecting Vermonters, the Department of Health needs an open line of communication. Testimony should be taken from the community members most affected by these health policies. Business owners, healthcare providers, parents, patients, and youth. We all have valuable input to share. Without our testimony, how can the Department of Health conduct a fair assessment?
We need public testimony. We need due process. We need these things to happen.
My name is Amy Hornblass. I'm director of Vermont Stands Up. And this is so healing, having all of you here and having our representatives here who are supporting these bills. And I just want to let folks know we have some next steps coming up. The very next thing that we're going to be planning is a town hall hearing of the cost-benefit analysis of the COVID protocols. We're going to have a microphone right here in the State House in an evening when people can come after work and share their stories of what it was like to send their kids to school with masks, to have them tested every week, to not be able to see their grandparents in the nursing home or their wife when she was giving birth, and all the things that happened during COVID. We're going to give folks a chance to come to the mic the way we used to in Vermont, a town hall style, town meeting style, hearing from the people. So thank you guys. Stay tuned.